I'm going to tell you right off the bat here, I have attempted this shout out twice now in the proper way, and I do not have the voice for it. It has hurt me every time, and I have not been able to finish it. So you will excuse me if this is not in the proper spirit of the shout out. But I will say thank you very much to The Age of Bay has ended. No more false hopes. Follow me, and you will never be disappointed. Transformer 1 fans, rise up! For joining the Patreon campaign. It was inevitable. The guy that just does that as a bit on TikTok has been on my feed for like the last 2 weeks. He's great at it. There's no way I can measure up. Thank you for letting me try. So, today's video, I wanted to keep it a little bit shorter, but I have no idea how long it's going to go. It depends on how much I want to ramble. So, once we get into January, I will be doing a few other videos that'll feel similar to this. And honestly, we're going to cover a few topics right at the beginning of this video, actually, that we kind of already talked about recently. We're going to talk about them again at some point in the first week of 2025. Because we'll do like the biggest news stories of the year. Some of it will be repetitive, but it's a nice little encapsulated video of all the things that are worth remembering as we go into 2025. But for now, I wanted to get the dregs out of the way. You know, I wanted to get the worst of the year and my biggest disappointments in general just out of the way, just so we can it's like the New Year thing, just like cast off all the bad of the year, move into 2025, move into the new year with new vision, and like just put away all the bad stuff, move forward with positivity. And that's kind of what we're going to do. We're just going to get rid of all the crap now. So like I said, we're going to start with a few places that we've already been recently, but we're going to talk about it again briefly. Obviously, the biggest disappointment is the fact that Transformers Reactivate has been completely dead and no updates whatsoever. Like I said, we've covered this recently. I'm not going to go into it too long. I'm going to mention again just for the people who this is absolutely one of the biggest disappointments, because we were promised that we would be getting updates this year, and obviously we have not. All we know is that they were upgrading to the next Unreal Engine, so which basically means a lot of the game has to be redone from the ground up for a game that was already in the some form of development cycle in one place or another for the last 8 years, and we have heard nothing since then. We know that their Instagram account went down, and we know that it was supposedly an error, but it still isn't up yet. So we don't know. We literally have no idea. We were really hyped and excited for this, but then, you know, when the trailer showed at the Gamer Awards, like everyone was surprised, like, this is a Transformer game? Oh my god, this looks so different. Like everyone was really excited. Like, yeah, this actually looks like the first Transformer game that's actually going for it. And it ain't. It's not going anywhere. So yeah. Hopefully 2025 brings us some kind of concrete update. I don't care if it's a cancellation or not. I just want to hear something about it. Likewise, biggest disappointments, the marketing for Transformers 1. Oh my god. I could harp on this so much. I have harped on it so much. I'm going to do it again. We're probably going to do it again when I do the top news of the year, because it's going to include Transformers 1 flopping. But that said, we know why it flopped. It's not because the movie is bad. You know, it's not because viewer interest wasn't there. A lot of people were excited for this movie. It's because the marketing was awful. Just like the marketing stunts they attempted made no sense whatsoever. They were the most outlandish, ridiculous things, and it just felt like they were trying for the sake of like shock value, what are you doing type reaction, instead of genuinely just getting it out there and putting their best foot forward. And then the trailer, that first trailer that made it look like some goofball like DreamWorks comedy movie, instead of like the proper tone it was going for, just immediately soured people on this movie. Like, it's a first impressions thing. Once the first impression is blown, that's it. That's it. You don't get a second chance. You don't get to try again. Yes, I know the second trailer was way better. It didn't have like the weird licensed music like they were trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy. It didn't have all the screwball comedy in it. That's fine. Good. That's good. You already blew it. You already blew your chance. Aside from that, yes, it was released in a rough window. Like there was a lot of competition alongside it, which also does not help in the least. Paramount is in general just a terrible partner for Transformers. I think it's high time to move on to a different distributor for this stuff. Case in point, Transformers EarthSpark's cancellation. I know. You're watching this video and you go, I don't like EarthSpark. Good for you. I'm proud of you. I don't care either. I like the show. I think the show is doing something different. I genuinely enjoy it. And unfortunately, Paramount is, again, just a terrible distribution partner for Transformers. Aside from the fact that Paramount Plus is one of the worst subscribed streaming services out there, like it has like next to no numbers compared to the like Disney Plus or Netflix, like next to no subscribers compared to those. Aside from all that, aside from just like it's a terrible partner to like broadcast this show on its actual broadcast on Nickelodeon, they just kept jumping its time slot around. And the worst thing you can do to a cartoon is jump its time slot around. Frankly, the only times you're going to have like an audience for it is, the hour before they leave for school and the hours after school and then the weekend. The times that kids actually have to just sit down in front of a TV. But EarthSpark would go from like mid-afternoon to like the death slot at 6 a.m., which is what killed a lot of the Unicron trilogy shows. Killed Transformers Cybertron. Like that show made it all the way through, but like no one really saw it because it was on at like, like the farmer hours. Point being, they were literally handling this franchise the worst way you could. Just basically making sure no one could see the show. And I think that's what kills it the most, is that by bouncing it around and by putting it on such a bad streaming service, you just ensure that no one is actually going to be able to see this series. I think that's where a lot of the negativity for it comes from. It's just like, there's just a lot of people who are just never exposed to it because they don't want to pay for Paramount Plus and they're not going to get up at 6 in the morning to watch a Transformer cartoon. Completely understandable there. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. The show deserved better. That's all I'm gonna say. The show deserved better. Like I said, all three of those topics we talked about very recently. Let's move into some fresh stuff to complain about. Because keep in mind, you have to acknowledge the negatives. You have to acknowledge and accept the bad that's going on so you can do right by it. And I genuinely feel like you need to understand the bad to genuinely enjoy the good for what it is. That was the whole Plastic Addict thing. Don't stop complaining about every toy that comes out. These are really bad Transformers. This is what a bad Transformer looks like, not what you're peddling as what is bad. No. So, by that same token, here's the new Studio Series packaging for Transformers for 2025, and at face value, it's fine. Like, it's kind of just a reworked version of what they were doing. I like that there's character and vehicle mode art on the front of the box. That's fine. The Studio Series logo is very muted on the box, but that's pretty much typical of Studio Series. That's kind of what they do. And that's fine. For Studio Series, that's fine. I'm just glad to see a plastic window on the box again, so I don't have a whole bunch of headless toys in the aisle anymore. But then they go and do the same thing to Generations. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why. Now, see, at first, I was thrilled with the change, because I genuinely don't like the current Generations packaging. I thought Legacy, between the weird box shape, the lack of window that just made the box way too flimsy, and just how over-decorated the box was, I just felt like it was just ugly. I wasn't a fan of how that packaging looked, and to stick with it for 3 years was a little bit frustrating, and it felt like, I needed the change up. But the more I look at this packaging and the more exposed I am to it, the less interested I am. I know when this first dropped, I'm like, yeah, this actually looks cool. Like, I like that they made the logo horizontal again. I like that they put the character art on the front, you know, instead of along the side or something. That's cool. I like those changes, you know? But that said, it just feels generic now, doesn't it? Like, if I, could look at the Studio Series box and then go back to the transfer box and realize the only difference between the two is the color of the printing. Like Studio Series gets a light blue, and then Generations, Age of the Primes, gets gold. And that's literally the only change we have between the packaging anymore. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. And on one hand, that does mean that Transformers is going to have a much stronger presence on a shelf. When you go into a Target or Walmart and see the Transformer section, you're not going to see all of these just random mashed up, packaging that all goes for something completely different. You're going to look at something that looks kind of uniform. And, like it's going to take up a big spot. It's going to make it look like Transformers is taking up a huge spot in the toy aisle again because, the two biggest lines have this matching aesthetic to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cyberworld was in the same vein. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. Not a direct copy of this, but still similar in tone and color, just to make the Transformers kind of unified. But it does feel generic. And, like when we go from like how stylized the logos for Legacy were and like how exciting they looked, and then we go to like just basic lettering. Like the logo for Age of Primes is just basic lettering. It's very understated for a line that should be really, really cool. Here's the 13 Primes for the first time as proper toys. It's kind of dull, It's like the life's kind of taken out of it, which is frustrating. The more I see the packaging, the less I like it. And I don't like the homogenizing of the brand. Like it feels like, because we know Age of the Primes is a 2-year line. And we kind of know that Studio Series is scraping the bottom of the barrel. They've only got a few more characters that are viable for Studio Series 86. Only a few live-action characters who have not had toys in Studio Series yet. We are hitting a point where, it's a very realistic thing to think, like Studio Series is just going to flat out run out of characters to do. And at some point, what else do you do with the line? Well, you prepare to merge the two back together into one. That seems to be what we're going for here. Remember, Generations is moving to 3 waves a year instead of 4. Imagine if a couple years from now we only have this one line that's unified now, and we're back up to 4 waves to get the last of Studio Series or 86 stuff out as part of the normal Generations line, and we just have one large line for collectors rather than 2 parallel ones. Doesn't it feel like between Studio Series running out of stuff to do and Generations turning more into Studio Series in appearance, doesn't it feel like we're starting to bring the two together? I feel like we're going in a very different place soon in Transformers. I'm not sure I'm down for it just yet. But on the topic of packaging, a lot of discourse over these pictures that came out for Age of the Primes. So who can spot the problem here? It's a little bit cut off by my format here, by my overlay. So you see the right arm of Superion, which of course is not done yet because Fireflight has not been revealed for Age of the Primes yet. We've only seen 3 of the 5 aerial bots, but you'll notice that. Actually, let me give you a little bit of a. I'll give you a little bit better look. See that? Do you see that like weird block that's sticking off the right side of Fireflight that isn't there on the other side? Yeah, that's an arm off of Needle Nose. So somehow a chunk of Needle Nose got onto this toy, where immediately we start realizing what happened. Hasbro's AI generating now. I already feel like Hasbro does little to nothing for the artists that actually put so much work into the Transformers brand. They don't credit the artists on the packaging. They don't credit the sculptor of the toys. They don't credit the designer of the toys. And I think that is criminal at this point. I've seen a lot of toys this year, and lately especially, where, yeah, like you actually know who's done it. You can actually credit the artist directly. Whereas Hasbro seems to want to bury it, almost like they're worried that, like some artist is going to get so picked up or well known that they're going to be the next Todd McFarlane and end up being their competition someday. Or, it's the thing of like, I don't want my talent poached. Like I want them to keep working on this brand. But it's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And now they've completely removed, and now it feels like they're removing the artist from the equation because, yeah, that's not a mistake an artist makes. That is not a mistake an artist makes. That is a computer generating an incorrect detail. That's what that is. And it's not the only time. They showed off the box for the next Studio Series Commander class, the Hook and Long Haul set. That is very much AI generated Hook and Long Haul. And yeah, like Hook especially, you can see it. The positioning of him, especially his hips, super weird. Like his proportions and shape just do not work out there. The big thing for me is the fact that the right leg has extra ridges and detail that the left leg does not. That's a little bit concerning. So yeah, it seems like Hasbro's cheaping out, and like I feel like improvements to the packaging, like putting the windows back in, are coming at the cost of screwing over artists and not giving them the proper work to do. I really hope that this is just like a temporary art thing. Like we said, Fireflight is not finished yet, so the artwork for Superion may not be final. This might be a quick packaging sample that is not indicative of the final release. We won't know until it's actually on a shelf or in somebody's hands. But for now, it is extremely disappointing. And I know people have already called them out. Like when they showed off this box on Instagram, people were already calling out Hasbro for AI generating the box art. It just seems like we get one thing back and they take something else away, We got windows back in the boxes, so we don't have to worry about damaged or stolen product at the store. But we lost the artists that put a lot of love into those creations, which is upsetting. So again, hopefully this is like a temporary thing. Don't know. We will find out. Cancellation of core class. This one is frustrating too, because there are a lot of characters that could be done in core class. We did a whole video about how core class should really be used. Should be used for smaller characters. Should be used for testing the waters for obscure characters or like lines that they haven't touched in a while. And to Hasbro's credit, that's what they did. That's the only semblance of Energon or Beast machines we have gotten during this 40th anniversary is in core class. Okay, credit where credit's due. That's not bad of an idea. But there are other things you can do with the core class. There are ways of creating minis of Transformers, because desktop and pocket size things are really popular, in the third party department as well. We detailed a whole video where you could do a Prime Cyberverse thing of creating a mini toy line with core class, and then your deluxes and Voyagers can end up tackling characters who are usually far larger than those sizes allow. Which would mean if I want to get a Scorponok toy that doesn't cost $200, here's a Voyager that's designed to scale with the core class toys that's only $35. And that not only solves an availability of character problem, especially if you want a comic book Scorponok who was not gigantic, who was not city sized. That also lets you use those copyrights for characters who typically you'd have to make giant characters for. You can have a Fortress Maximus. You can have a Metroplex at smaller scales. I can have a Metroplex that's small enough to fit on a desk and fiddle with if I want to. Things like that occurred to me. And we pitched a whole video on that. It's just disappointing that it also removes the entry point to the Generations line, or Transformer lines in general, because Studio Series lost core class as well. You know, you have this like small, cheap, toy that kids can afford to buy with their allowance, but now the entry point is $25. If you want a proper Transformer experience that isn't like a one-step changer, a flip spring open changer, whatever, $25, please. And that feels wrong. Like that feels like you're cutting out the market that these toys are intended for. And we need that market, you know? Because these, collectors are, us collectors aren't going to stick around. Like you need to you need to get the kids involved. So yeah, it's disappointing that it got cut. I know they mentioned that like core would have a place in certain aspects, and like that just means they're just going to bulk out multi-packs with them at points. Same way they did with like Battle Masters for a long time. Frustration, disappointment. Now, I'm going to mention this because it is something that came up a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Like, for starters, this toy is going to end up on my Toys of the Year list, but I am docking it a lot because a $200 toy should not have the QC problems that this toy ended up with. So, Tidal Wave is a fantastic figure, but it is marred by some joints that are just way, way too tight and can break the toy if you handle it incorrectly. Or they could just pop, even if you think you're playing with it carefully, like the knees, for instance. A lot of these Tidal Waves ended up with very fragile, breakable knees, and when you've got a giant figure like him, losing stability in the legs is the worst thing you could have. You know, I could deal with an arm that's too loose to hold something up, but a leg, a leg that can't hold a pose means my figure topples over. Anything near it topples over. And when you're 1.5 feet tall, that's going to be a lot of things that topple over. You know, on top of the fact that I really don't want a $200 toy to break. If I'm spending $200 on your Transformer toy, especially if it is smaller than the size class used to be, then yeah, I want it to be perfect right out of the box. I know that's not a consistent thing. You can't control random incidents at the factory during production, those little QC issues that slip by here and there. But when it's a wide-scale known issue, okay, now we have a problem. And when you're asking $200 for a toy with a wide-scale issue, now we have a trust problem. Now I look at things like that Star Convoy for $150 and going, is this going to work out? Is this going to be good or not? I look at, the upcoming, we're still waiting on like Omega Prime to come out from HasLab. And I think that toy does a lot. Please tell me it's not going to suffer issues like this. It's concerning, So it's not bad enough that like I could potentially be out a $200 piece, especially one I've been waiting for a long time. You remember the videos I did championing the Titan class Tidal Wave, the gigantic Tidal Wave. And I got what I wanted. It's a giant Tidal Wave toy, and I love it. But I'm scared to mess with it because the QC issues are just that potentially bad. The worst one for me, the one I get to experience the most, thankfully nothing on mine is broken yet, but even like the troop carrier section of the Dark Fleet doesn't hold together. Like how do you engineer a toy that does this much and you ask people $200 for it and then two parts that are supposed to hold together don't even hold together? Frustration again. And like I said, it creates a trust issue, and I want to be able to trust this brand. If I pick up a toy, especially if it's an expensive toy, I want to know it's going to be good right out of the box, and I'm not going to have to return it for any reason whatsoever. That's getting dicey when things like this happen. And this video, as I expected, went way longer than I expected. I wanted a short video. I wanted a short video today, so I only put a few in, but I can ramble. So we're going to end it off on what is absolutely the biggest disappointment of 2024, and that is the firing of John Warden. This hurt. I know there's a lot of people that don't like how he handled the brand because everyone felt like it was way too G1-centric when he ran it. But let's be honest, it wasn't a bad time to be a Transformers fan. There was a lot of good product on the shelves. He navigated a lot of pitfalls from the higher-ups at Hasbro and still managed to turn out good toys, and I'll credit him for that. I won't take that away from him. Yeah, I might have preferred a little bit of more generational mix-up, but I feel like he did good for what he had to work with, and I was kind of excited to have someone who had been with Transformers that long back on the brand again to see what exactly he was going to do. And then obviously 6 months later, he's on the chopping block because of layoffs, cutbacks, that old corporate, we don't care about your longevity, your experience, or anything. You just make a lot of money, and we don't want you to make a lot of money because we have to pay that money. So goodbye. It makes it worse when afterwards you find out all the things that John's big Hasbro paycheck was paying for, like his wife's medical treatments. You know, it's a horrible, horrible thing to be so loyal and so good to a company that just dumps you because you make just a little bit more than they're comfortable with. And then to immediately have your family in jeopardy over it. It's a horrible thing. Absolutely horrible. I haven't looked in to see if any other toy company has picked him up. You know, Mattel, Jada, someone, please pick him up because, you know, look at how good he's done. But I guess time will tell, and I wish for all the best for him. And that's going to be it. I'm going to cut it off there because, again, this is way longer than I expected it to be. And my throat is still hurting from the intro. So I'm going to go get something that's much colder than this bottle of water now. And I thank each and one of you for watching. And I hope for a much more positive 2025 for the Transformers brand. And I will see you there. Until then, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.
Analysis complete. Adapting translators to local language.
Are you out there?